um, rated, and etc. And then we're going to have a little Q&A session. All right.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
are you able to share
perfect.
your screen?
Yeah, I can
Or
try.
I don't know if I'm supposed to give you permission, right?
Let me see. I might be able to. We normally use like Teams, so I haven't been in a Zoom meeting in a minute, but let me see. Yeah, I actually don't know if I can share my
It
screen from
should
this.
be it should be
Oh
at the
yeah, yeah, okay.
bottom. Hmm.
I see it now. I see it. Let's see. Do y'all see this?
Yep.
All right,
Yep, we
let me
can
see
see
here.
it.
I just have like a few slides I'll get through with basic info, and really more than anything, I just wanted to give everyone a chance, like ask questions, and I'll try to give you honest and frank answers about them from the like resident perspective. So yeah, I'm Casey. I'm now a fourth year resident at MedStar Orthopedic Institute, former class of 2021, and this will just be going over sort of like the process of applying orthopedics, away rotations, and then interviews in ortho. So as everyone knows, orthopedics is one of the most competitive specialties. It's basically always ortho and plastics every year, and it seems to get more and more competitive each year. I think this is the data from not this cycle, but the one prior, but the match rate for US MDC, what all of you guys will be, was around 65%, and I'm sure it's much lower when you include all comers, so like IMGs and DOs. Um, Matched applicants have pretty high numbers and like impressive stats across the board. So it used to be step one was like the big screen that everyone tried to get past, but now that that's no longer a thing, you guys should just try to pass it and enjoy your dedicated study time more than my year did, and then focus on just doing well on step two because I'm sure that will just become the new like screen for a lot of places. Previously, the average applicant had 6 research experiences and then 16 publications or presentations. I put an asterisk because a lot of that is overinflated. Like you do one project and then you publish it one place and submit it to like 5 meetings. So that counts as like 6 research items, but 16 publications would be very impressive if they were all like individual projects. And then 35% of matched applicants got nominated to AOA, which is really just a reflection of getting mostly honors on your clinical rotations. So the main thing is like it's very competitive. Rutgers has a lot of people applying every year. My year it was like 15 or so. It's probably just more and more every year now. So how do you maximize your application so that you can secure a spot? Most important thing is probably grades. So just get as many honors as you possibly can, which is obviously easier said than done, but really focus your time there. And then my year, it was if you honor everything, you definitely get AOA. If you get all honors in one high pass, you'll probably get in, but it depends on how many other people do that. Board scores, so basically just past step one, no one cares about that anymore. And now step two will be the one thing to really try to like hammer home. I assume previously the average for matched applicants was like a 256. That'll probably go up now that step one is pass fail. Try to maximize research output, uh, preferentially in orthopedics, but any research is good just to show you kind of um, put forth the effort and know how to get involved in like conducting research projects. Big thing is extracurricular activities. So like if you were a D1 athlete in college, if you were in the military, if you had like a previous career before this, a lot of people find like medicine and orthopedics as a second career. And I think that's generally viewed favorably from like the application reviewer standpoint. And then letters of recommendation are one of the most important things, but those are essentially just a reflection of your home performance rotation and then also your away rotations. Most people in orthopedics do 3, sometimes 4 aways. Those are very critical. And then there's this new thing that happened in the past few years, like signaling. My year was the last year that did not have this process. Um, but my year was also the last year where basically everybody applied to like 100 programs. So it was, every program was just getting inundated with applications. It made screening kind of a pain. So they implemented a system now where you basically can send like signals to your preferred programs. Our institution did a study on this. If some of you guys know Ray Tarapore, he actually graduated from Rutgers the year before me, and now he's one of my co-residents. So we basically just surveyed a ton of applicants on how this new signaling thing affected like the first year. And pretty much we found that almost 80% of interviews come from signal programs. Over 90% of people match at a place they signaled. And then also another finding in the study was that 63% of people matched at a place where they did an away rotation. So signaling and doing away spaces are like huge if you want to match there. Um, and then away rotations, this like has been studied at length, and there are a million publications about like the importance of these for orthopedics. Like I said, 60% of people match where they do in away. And then from our standpoint, a rotation, we kind of view it as like a month-long interview. And we consider rotators what we call like a known entity, because when the interview process comes around, it's very easy for someone to sort of like put on a show and have a facade for like 2 hours. But when someone spends a month with you, like we really feel like we know our rotating students better than just people we interviewed for like 2 hours. So at least at our program and some of the other hospitals that rotate out their residencies, if you do an away rotation and really crush it, that'll bump you way, way up their rank list. And then in terms of like how do you do that? That's a very good question and sometimes kind of hard to like quantify. I remember when I was a third year med student at Rutgers, I rotated on the hand service with Dr. Monica, who was like the main reason I went into orthopedics and decided to like pursue this field. But he recommended this book on the top left, like Orthopedic Residency and Fellowship, A Guide to Success. I think it's like 20 years old now, and like all the numbers are super outdated. But he mentioned three things. It's like the three A's. So availability, just like be around all the time while you're rotating. Like the more you're around, the more you're going to be able to help out things. Affability, so just try to get along with everyone and be nice and try to just like be someone that the residents can hang out with. And then ability or anatomy, really for med students, it's going to be more so anatomy. Because for the most part, we just expect med students to know like the basic anatomy of surgical approaches and what we're kind of getting into. Um, like if you're assigned cases, just read up on the anatomy the night before and know some most of like the basic stuff. And then in terms of ability, the only thing physically that we have students do that could be like impressive is if you can close a wound quickly and well. That's like we've had rotators come through and they're like very good at closing wounds. And we're like, oh man, they're going to be great. Because I think that's kind of a reflection of you'll be probably a pretty skilled surgeon later on if you're facile with closing wounds like very early, maybe. And it's just a way to sort of show off your ability to like use your hands in an efficient way. Um, Always be early, which is kind of goes without saying, but surprisingly, we have a lot of rotating students from all over the place. And if we have like fracture conference at 6, people strolling at 6:05. So basically, like whatever the event is, just like plan on be there a few minutes early. So if there's traffic or like whatever, an issue with the parking garage, you're still not going to be late. Definitely be polite to everybody. If you like think it's going to be inconsequential, you can maybe have a short timer that day and make like a snarky comment to like clinic staff or something that can definitely come back to bite you. Um, Sometimes if like a clinic MA or even like an OR nurse or someone can get in the ear of some of the attendings and sort of get people blacklisted. So just be careful about that. And then sometimes as a rotating med student, it's hard to kind of define what your role is and how you can be best helpful. So I find it's just easiest if you just ask, hey, what can I do to help out? Whether it's like holding like in the operating room or grabbing splint supplies for consults. But if you just ask like, hey, how can I help? Then it's easier for the resident or the attending or whoever you're with to kind of direct you of like, this is where you're going to be most useful. And I love when students say that because then it's like makes it straightforward. Like, okay, here's a task. This will be helpful. Thank you for doing that. Um, and then another big thing is orthopedics is super, super small. So basically everyone in the field is like 1 degree of separation apart. So you'll rotate at so-and-so program. And then if you're applying to another place and you have an interview there, that program will oftentimes call and ask like, hey, what's the deal with this person? What do you think of them? What are they like in person? How do they rotate? And I know we'll definitely do that if we interview someone and they're from X, Y, or Z med school. I'm like, oh, they interviewed really well. I'll call a friend at that program who's a resident and be like, hey, what's the real story with this person? And that sort of goes both ways. So everyone's always talking behind the scenes. And then once you get to interviews, this kind of just goes for all fields, not just orthopedics, but have like basic answers or at least ideas of how you're going to answer ready. It doesn't need to be off of a script because then that comes across as a bit robotic, but like just the basics. Tell me about yourself. Have like a few minute life story to tell why you want to go into orthopedics or like X field. What are your strengths and weaknesses? All like the general personality stuff. And then for orthopedics, I got asked a lot, like, what was your favorite orthopedic case? What did you learn from it? Some places will have like a dedicated research room. So if you do all these research projects, you need to like really know them because oftentimes you'll get grilled about like methods, like the nitty-gritty details of the results. And you get kind of caught like not knowing, it's sort of a bad look. And then another thing, some places will give you like clinical vignettes where they'll pull up x-rays and have you read them, or they'll like describe a consult to you that's like a compartment syndrome or a dysvascular limb and sort of try to get you thinking about like what the next steps are. I've had a few when I interviewed like read this x-ray questions. We don't do that at our program, but I know a lot of hospitals do. So just be kind of ready to at least interpret like basic films like hip fracture, distal radius, ankle fracture, like the basic most common orthopedic injuries. And then a big one is be ready to talk about or perform the interests that you list on your application. So I put that I play guitar, and I probably had to play guitar like 5 times throughout my interview process. Or if you say you like skiing, be ready to talk about like what your ski setup is, what are your favorite mountains, like all the details, because oftentimes that'll be a big talking point to sort of like differentiate you during an interview, especially if the interviewer asking about it has a similar interest, then they'll sort of like try to delve a little bit deeper into your knowledge. And then just general traits in interviews, because every program's different. They're kind of looking for different things here and there, but all in all, I would say the field of orthopedics, like the general things to be successful, just be hardworking, someone who's easy to get along with because 5 years is a long time. And as residents, you spend a ton of time together. So more than anything, we want someone who will just like work hard, do a good job. They can hang out and they're easy to get along with. They're adaptable, um, takes initiative is a big one. Um, we want someone who's going to come into a residency and instead of just thinking like, all right, they're holding the pager, they see a consult, I'm on like backup call. They just text me an x-ray like, hey, what should I do? Where it would be much nicer if it was they'll text me an x-ray, hey, I think it's this injury. My plan is X, Y, or Z. So it's like, okay, they took some initiative, they thought about it, and then I can just confirm yes or no instead of just like talking to you step by step. And then another thing is handles feedback well because you'll get sort of like roasted all throughout residency. So you have to have kind of thick skin. And that's a trait you might be able to, the lights time out of me. Um, you can kind of develop, but it's good to sort of come in and during interviews, they might ask you about a time you got feedback and adjusted or things like that, because that'll be a big part of residency. And then additional considerations. So specific for Rutgers, like which services should you rotate on? When you do the herm rotation, I did hand with Dr. Monica, who was like my main mentor, and then now Dr. Brian Codd is at Rutgers too, who seems like a great addition to the program. Peds with like McPartland and Adelson and Bo when he was there, if he's still operating, were great. And then sports to spend time with Dr. Gatt. But there's also like the trauma experience is very good. I've heard joints is very good. The main things would be just figure out which residents are on that service and then just try to ask them specifically like, hey, how can I be of best use on the service? Like, how can I help you out? How can I make the service run smoother? And hopefully they can give you some guidance. Another thing is how competitive you are as an applicant and try to have like an honest gauge of that. So if you got a 270 on step two and you played Division I sports, or you were like a Navy SEAL, or you started a nonprofit and you got AOA, which I know it sounds like ridiculous, but people like this do exist, then you can probably look in the mirror and be like, okay, I'm going to be like a top tier applicant. I can probably, I'll probably get a lot of interviews. Um, and then on the flip side, you could be like, okay, I got a middle of the road score, a mix of high pass and honors. I have some research. I like didn't invent something in undergrad. And then you think like, okay, like this might be more of a stressful time for me. And then from there, it's which programs to rotate at, um, kind of based on your competitiveness. But that being said, you don't need to be like a superstar. The best chance to match it like a very sought after program, if you are not like this like superstar on paper, is to rotate there and just absolutely crush it. Because we've had rotators that are now residents that were the strongest on paper, but they spent a month with us and like absolutely killed it. We're like, they're going to be a good resident. Who cares what they look like on paper? Um, that also goes to where to apply and where to send your 30 signals, whether it's like geographic location, but really it comes down to like, what do you value in a program? So do you want to go someplace that has a big name like an HSS or Harvard or NYU? Do you want to get a ton of trauma at like a Harborview or Vanderbilt or Emory or something like that? Do you want a place that has a ton of like OR experience and autonomy? like a lot of the Texas programs. Our program has a ton of OR experience, or do you want something where you're not going to get like absolutely killed, which every residency in orthopedics is going to be hard and you'll work more than 80 hours sometimes and you'll like miss some life events here and there, but some are notoriously more like meat grinders and then some are more of like laid back. There's a kind of a scale and we work with residents, we rotate to places that are more on like the meat grinder side, and our program is probably a little bit on the like easier side of things. We have a little bit more free time and time to scrub extra cases and do more research and stuff like that, which is nice. But the main thing, and this is like a main thing, if you take one thing away from this, probably what I want to convey, it's residency is a super individual experience and you get out what you put in. So when I was applying, I thought, I was like, oh man, if I can go to like this big name program, like then I'll be really good. Everyone there will be really good. And if I don't go there, then like I'll be compromised in some way. But we see like we work at our med-star hospitals and we rotate at Hopkins and shock trauma, and we have rotating residents from all over the place. We work with fellows from everywhere, and you can have five graduates of the same orthopedic residency, and some of them are super, super slick, and some of them are struggling to do like basic diagnostic arthroscopy. Um, so it's kind of just the extra work that you put in over the course of 5 years. That's what really makes the difference, I think. Not, oh, I trained at X or I trained at Y. Like some of the, I was like the best resident I've seen who rotated with us, who seemed like he was in practice for 10 years already as like a fourth year resident, was from Maimonides in Brooklyn, which is like not a huge name program, but it just shows like he was always reading. He would stay late in lab. He was so knowledgeable, super slick in the OR, and like so you don't need to train at like an HSS to be like that. It's kind of you just have to maximize your resources wherever you end up. And I think that's basically everything I wanted to get across. But I'm really just here to answer everyone's questions for whatever y'all might have.
Whichever has questions, you can go ahead and ask now.
Yeah. Or if there's like is there a chat that you guys can like uh send to, or you can just shoot them out, whatever works.
I also have a few questions like that were submitted through the forum, but I'll give people a moment to think about a question.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe that presentation was so thorough it left no questions.
We've covered everything.
Yep, everyone's ready.
Hey Casey, it's Al here. I'm an M4. Uh, Thanks again for giving this talk. Just had I guess, quick question, more personalized to your program.
Yep.
You gave a lot of good info about like, you know, there's kind of like a sliding scale of what kind of applicant you want or how competitive you may be. Is your program like participating in a screening out process with step two, or would you say it's more like holistic? Is there a heavier weight on like grades, AOA, so on and so forth?
So there's no like we don't have a computer that automatically screens out at a certain number. The way ours is set up. And so that being said, I would say probably when step one mattered, I would say by and large, our residents had an average step one score of like above a 240. But some people, we've had rotators that match with us that are killer residents that had like a 215 or something that was like would normally be thought of as like undesirable, but they rotated and they killed it. So we don't have a screen. The way it works is we get like however like 900 applications or whatever, and then we have all the different application reviewers. So they'll get a stack of 50 it is or whatever, and it's kind of they might create like an internal screen in their mind, but by and large, every application gets eyes laid on it. And historically, we match mostly rotators. I would say probably like more than two-thirds, maybe three-fourths of our residency rotated with us. And it used to be kind of mostly from the Northeast, like a lot of Rutgers. There was like Katie Butler, myself, Ray Towerport, a lot of University of Maryland. But now in recent years, I think they've been trying to make a push where like now we have our class from like Colorado or Georgia or kind of more all over the place. But mostly rotators and there are no screens.
That signaling is in play. For people who haven't rotated but have signal, do you think they get kind of like an extra look just because it shows how like they are interested and just maybe couldn't fit it into the schedule? Or
Yeah,
do you think
100%. We probably more than 95% of the people we interview, if not everybody, send us a signal. Because like at the end of the day, we want someone who like we want you to want to be here as well. So like if you send a signal, it's like I have genuine interest in the program. Um, so I would say probably everywhere in the country, whether it's a big name or not, are getting enough signals that they shouldn't need to interview more people than signals they received, if that makes sense. Like we have 3 spots, and I think we interview about 50 people a year, but probably get a few hundred signals. So if without a signal, unless there's like something insane on the application that we're like, we need to interview this person, we probably don't interview. I don't remember anyone we interviewed last year who didn't send a signal.
Got you. Thanks. Sorry, the last question, and then I'll let other people
Yeah, yeah.
chime in. So you mentioned that your program has fellows. How has that kind of impacted resident learning at your program?
Uh, so at our program, I think it's very positive. We are a bit unique in the setting of there are 15 residents, or I guess 14, because we used to be two and now we're three per year. But it's our orthopedic group is like a private academic, so it's a mix of private practice and academic. So there's like 14 of us, but there's probably like 60 surgeons that we work with. So there's a ton of like PAs that we're vastly outnumbered. So there's enough coverage, or there's enough attendings that like the residents or fellows themselves could never cover. The fellows, so like when you're on like the foot and ankle service, the foot and ankle fellow will be on a separate service from you. The most interaction we probably have is with the Curtis National Hand Center fellows. It's like the best hand fellowship in the country. They're great every year. And how we work with them is starting in, I think they start in July or August, and then in September, I think at the end of September, they get attending privileges. So they take cases by themselves. So they are the attending. So it'll be you and the fellow, and they'll be walking you through something. Um, but I think it's institution specific. Like we also rotate at shock trauma, and they have a lot of trauma fellows there. So sometimes you can be kind of playing like third fiddle if there's like two fellows fixing an acetabular fracture. You're kind of just holding hook and sitting there. So it varies institution to institution from what I've heard, but I think in general, I would not be like turned off by a place that has fellows because more often than not, they're just teaching you and the attending is like not really doing much from my experience at least.
Got you. Thanks, man.
Mhm.
Hello. Thanks for coming tonight. We
Yep, of
appreciate
course.
your time. I have a question about research. I know you mentioned like the average applicant has like 6 projects over 16 different like presentations.
Mhm.
Can you give any insight into like research years? I know it's become a more popular thing in the past couple of years, especially since step one would pass fail.
Yeah, they've become like I feel like more than so when I applied, less than 50% of people definitely did them. It was like a huge boost if you did. But now it seems like more and more people are doing them. So I'm honestly I'm not sure if there's been like published numbers of what percentage of applicants do them now, but it seems to be definitely more than 50%. I think if you start early with like research and getting involved and you like produce a good amount of projects by the time you apply, then it's probably not necessary. But if you kind of decide on orthopedics late and you're like, man, I have nothing and I'm not really sure if I'm going to get competitive enough, then it's probably not the end of the world. I mean, the downside, of course, is you're delaying becoming an attending by 1 year. But in the grand scheme of things, it will probably significantly help your application. That being said, if you're going to do one, definitely do one at a that's like well established and look at the track record of previous research fellows. So you want to go to a place where it's basically like almost everyone matches. Like every previous research fellow who did this year ended up matching because there are a lot of them that orthopedics is so competitive that they know there's going to be kids that like need it. So some of them are not like predatory, but they'll just fill their research spot, but they don't really have a guarantee that they're going to be like, oh, you'll definitely match. So you want like someone, a direct mentor who's like very well connected, or some places have like a high propensity to match their previous research fellows. So like a lot of like the A lot of the like we rotated Hopkins for 6 months of our residency. A lot of the Hopkins residents were previous Hopkins research fellows, and a lot of institutions are like that. So I think it's worthwhile in the long run. I mean, if it's going to better your chances for a career in orthopedics, like it's a 1 year trade-off for like a 30 plus year career, it's probably worthwhile. But just definitely screen the fellowship, and the most important thing would be like look at the previous year's fellows and where did they match, and then where did they match?
I guess like a follow-up question to that would be like, at what point would you decide if you like need a research year or you should consider one, considering like you take step two. I feel like it's harder to plan ahead for a research year given the narrow time window between when you like take step two and when you would have
Right.
to apply
So
for.
when is everyone taking step two this year? My year, we took it after we applied. Like if you did well on step one, it was like step two can only hurt you, push it off until after your application goes out. So I assume like how early are you guys taking it now?
I assumed it was pretty close to the after the end of your third year, maybe in, like an M3 or four can provide insight on that. I'm only an M2.
Yeah, we took it
For
between three and four, like by and large. So maybe like May or June-ish of this year.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's definitely short turnaround time because I would assume most of the applications for like the research fellowship spots kind of go out before then. That being said, if it would be feasible, maybe you can submit applications for the research fellowship spots. And then like if you crush step two and you're like, I feel more confident now, like you got a bunch of honors, you crushed step two, then you could probably like withdraw and they'll fill that spot with someone else because there's like an abundance of people that want to be orthopedic research fellows.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I think there's not like a really good answer. It's just like a tough question and tough situation. But yeah.
I just have a quick add-on question that kind of applies to this that was submitted. So let's say if someone took a research year, an applicant, and an applicant who didn't take a research year, like will your consideration of them and like how much research they did change? Like will you be expecting to see more quality publications from a person who did a research year?
Yeah, 100%. When we see there was a research here, it's like you should have been productive. It's like if someone has 4 publications they didn't do research here, we're like, okay, cool, they did some research. But if you did a research here and you like still have 4 publications, we're like, okay, you should probably be producing more than that. Because some people do research years and it ends up like not being super productive and they basically just like hang out for a year, which I've heard some people go to like a new kind of not well set up place and by no fault of their own, like the research infrastructure is just not built yet. And then they end up kind of just like sitting around and churning wheels, not producing much that year, which is like the worst case scenario, I guess.
I had a question. So, hi, I'm Divya. I'm applying this year. So,
Nice.
wanted to know if you had any insight onto like geographic signaling because I know I'm not sure if that's new this year or whatever, but we're able to kind of send preferences for up to 3 geographic regions.
Hmm.
Um, and there's even like 3 within the East Coast. Like there's like New England, DMV, and then there's like New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. So do you know if people
Oh,
are
wow.
looking at
This is actually the first I'm hearing of,
that?
hearing of
Okay.
that. So no, I was not aware, but that's interesting. So you get your 30 signals and then on top of that, 3 regions.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just from like my initial gut instinct, I would think the individual signals to programs would be more important, especially like in the Northeast, it's so densely populated. Like in New York, there's like what, 8 orthopedic residencies or something. So I think they'll probably still give much more weight to like, hey, you want to come to specifically Mount Sinai instead of like you want to come to New York City because everyone wants to go to New York. Or and if you signal like the DMV, there's like MedStar, Georgetown, GW, Howard, Hopkins, Maryland. So it's like
Mhm.
signaling the region will probably help to some extent, but I would guess that signaling the specific programs will be of much more utility.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Casey. Thank you for your talk. I was just wondering what made you want to apply to MedStar and what kinds of things you were looking for in a program when you were applying as a med student.
Yes. So our program is like not super well known. And what I was kind of unique. So I just knew I wanted to do like hand and upper extremity surgery. I like spent a lot of time with Dr. Monica on the hand service. I work with Dr. Cod a lot. And then I was figuring out where I was going to rotate with Dr. Monica one day, and then he was like, "You should check out this place. They have the Curtis National Hand Center if you want to do hand. That's like a premier location." And then like I didn't do anyways because then COVID happened, so they canceled everything. So I ended up not rotating anywhere. But I was in like kind of a unique spot where I was like, okay, I know I want to do hand surgery. Let me look at places that have like a very strong hand experience. And the same goes if you're like, man, I love orthopedic trauma. Like I want to be an orthopedic trauma surgeon. I think something's wrong with you because you have to be crazy to want to do that. But then you could be like, okay, I want to go to a huge level one trauma center. I want to go to Harborview in Seattle or Vanderbilt or Emory or like one of those like huge trauma centers where you get a ton of volume of like high energy motor vehicle accidents and crazy stuff like that.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Hey Casey, my name's Dan.
Hey
I'm
man,
an
yeah,
M2.
I know you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, I'm going to a few conferences this year for orthopedics, and a few of the conferences I don't have like a research mentor going with me. I'm kind of going alone, or might have like one friend there. So I just wanted to know like any advice for like how to talk to other attendings or how to like meet other people in the field at these conferences. Like what do you suggest for med students?
Um, yeah, the best way is probably from what I found sometimes, depending on what the conferences are, but like for the bigger ones, there'll be like kind of a main room, and then there's usually like smaller side rooms, like small sessions where they'll present, and then there's like a panel to ask back and forth. Usually the best time is to catch them like after that, like at the Hand Society meeting, there's like the main ballroom, and then there's like 20 of these little like smaller sessions, and that's more of like a small group setting. So instead of like trying to meet someone in like this huge ballroom, they'll give their presentation, little Q&A panel, and usually they'll like hang around. You can go up to them and be like, "Hey, I loved your talk on whatever the hell it was," and then introduce yourself and sort of like get the ball rolling that way. That's what I've done before, probably. Is the only way I've ever like cold approached anyone was after like a small group talk. But I mean, generally everyone's pretty pretty nice in orthopedics, barring a few exceptions.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yep. Which conferences are you going to?
EOA and the Ortho Summit.
Oh, is Ortho Summit OSET?
Yeah,
Oh, no, where is that in Vegas again this year?
yep. It's in Vegas in September.
Nice. A bunch of residents from my program will be there, so you'll probably run into them. And I think some of our attendings will be like the faculty there. I think Anand Murthy, one of the shoulder surgeons here, is like very involved in that. But yeah, that's always a fun meeting. And I think they give you a stipend for like food and stuff, and apparently the food's really good. So
I'll name drop you a lot.
yeah, yeah, see if it works.
How valuable do you think it is networking at these conferences for eventually matching?
Um, it's probably good to get like a foot in the door, because then you can be like, hey, we met at so and so place, and you can kind of express interest, and especially if you like can provide some like valuable comments about their research, you kind of seem like you know what's going on, and then they might remember you more. But I think more important than just like meeting them and trying to get a foot in the door that way would be like having someone call for you. So it would be, and I'm sure Dr. Gatt, I'm not sure if he still does this or how many people are applying every year, but he'll be like, just list the programs you want to go to most, and I'll try to call someone there. And like either Gat or Adelson or Bo or Monica, or like someone will basically anywhere you want to go, especially in the Northeast, like they'll know someone. So I think it's much more valuable to be like, instead of that attending that you meet at a conference being like, hey, I remember this kid from a conference, to be like, oh, hey, my buddy from residency 20 years ago called me about this kid and vouched for him. So like that will probably do you more good.
I have another question if no one was waiting to ask, but I know you mentioned like being ready to like perform your hobbies. Like, did anyone ask you to do that? Like at interviews?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But like I said, I put like I play guitar for
Hmm.
like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and they were like, okay, like play a song now. And same thing, like people will be like, I play piano, and they make, okay, like play something on this keyboard. Um, so it's definitely
And were these all like virtual interviews?
my year was virtual, but in person
Okay.
sometimes they'll like have an instrument waiting there or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I
Thanks.
mean, kind of not that we think everyone's like lying in there on the application, but people obviously have a tendency to like make themselves seem more interesting or like more of an expert in whatever field. So I'd say more often than not, it's probably going to be like, oh, you listed this as your hobby, like tell me the specifics about it. And usually it's out of like genuine interest. Like if I see an application and like someone is like, oh, I play guitar, I'll ask them about it, not because I'm like, play me a song. I think you're lying, just to sort of like connect with them on like a personal level.
Got it. Thanks.
Mhm.
I have another question from the submitted ones. What is an interview question that like students and applicants get most trouble in with, like they're not prepared to answer it?
Oh, that's something that like we give a fair amount of weight to. I mean, at least I do, would be like, tell me about like your favorite orthopedic case that you saw and then what you learned from it. Because then it shows they were like attentive and like sort of not necessarily taking notes, but they were like cognizant of what's going on. Hey, I thought this was really cool. And most people like have an answer, but if we ask someone that who's a fourth year med student applying to orthopedics, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's like a knee replacement or something like that, and they can't provide any details, and that's like kind of a red flag. But from at least at our program, like the resident interviews, it's mostly just like stupid questions like if you're a DJ, like what are the first five songs you play, or like if you get $1,000, what's the first thing you spend it on, or stuff like that, just to kind of like try to get to know people a little bit better. But yeah, definitely have the basics down. And then another big one that's kind of tough, I remember it was hard for me, was like tell me about a time you failed and then what did you learn from it? So be ready for that one. Because for me, I was like, oh man, that's like hard because you don't want to seem like you like failed and like really mess something up, but you still want to like show some humility and growth and all that stuff.
Hey Casey, thanks for doing this.
Yep.
I'm fourth year. I'm currently in Colorado, and first time out here, and just like a lot of other places that I'll be going to, never been here before. What do you recommend? Like, what are some questions that you think are critical that sub-Is ask of either the residents or attendings, like while we're spending our month here, so that we can also get to know the program? Because like we can do X amount of research about a certain program, facility, what are their like focuses, etc. But when it comes to more like actual logistical stuff, that's not something that's readily available. So what are like the most like critical things that we ask that are not like taboo per se of like
Right. Yeah. Are you rotating UC Denver?
yeah.
Oh, nice. Are you on the hand service at all or no?
No, I'm on peds right now, and I've been working really close with peds hands, and
Nice.
peds trauma right now, and
Nice.
then I go on to adult ortho trauma.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I hear that's very busy. I'm applying for hand fellowship right now, and that's like one of my top choices. That place
Oh,
seems sweet.
it's awesome.
Um,
I love it.
yeah, and Denver's great. But anyway, so yeah, so things that like you're not supposed to ask, but you can kind of pay attention to would be like how much call are the junior residents taking? Are the second years on call like every third day? Because A, that like it's bad for your overall health, and then B, that means you're missing 1/3 of your entire time operating, just taking call. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing is like when you're in the OR, like what do you see the senior residents doing? And of course, like I said, that's going to vary. Some PGY4s will be super slick and some will be kind of like have two left hands. But see, like, are they letting like some of the maybe more knowledgeable and experienced residents, like, are they kind of letting them go and do a lot in the OR? Or are they like standing there holding retractors for the attending? Because that kind of gives you a sense of like autonomy. Questions I think that are like they're not taboo to ask would be like, are there any things that like residents have given feedback on to the program that has subsequently been implemented? So it shows they're like open to resident feedback. If we're not happy with like X, Y, or Z, we can just go to our program director or the chairman and they'll like try to make that situation better for us. And then Yeah, probably I'm thinking less of things to ask, but kind of things to try to look for. Because you're absolutely right. Like every program on paper sounds the exact same online. They're all like, we're a research powerhouse. We have great operative experience. The residents are close. Everyone's happy. Like they all sound the same. But yeah, I would say like, how much are the residents doing in the OR? Um, are they getting like screamed at often by the attending? Some programs are just like more malignant than others. Do they seem like they're like happy and hanging out with each other and kind of like shooting the shit and poking fun at each other, like a nice close-knit group, or are they all kind of like on an island? Would probably be in hindsight like the things to look out for. Um, and then yeah, like the questions, because it's probably like poor form to be like, how much call do you guys take? Because that could be perceived as like you don't want to take call and work hard and all that stuff. Not that I think that, I think that's a fair question, but some people in orthopedics are like hard-nosed and don't want you to ask that. But yeah, you'd ask like what changes have been implemented after like resident feedback, or like how open are the faculty to your input to sort of like change things here and there.
Okay. And then kind of following in the same vein, I know that we're kind of conditioned as from M1, if you think you're going to do ortho or even considering it, you have to expect that there's going to be a significant degree of difficulty and like, personal and time, like commitment and sacrifice to it. So like we're kind of primed to expect that, like keep your head down and, say yes to everything. Are there any like red flags that you can say as a resident to look out for in programs versus like any like major green flags like that we should be aware of when we're rotating at places?
Like something if you hear residents say like X, Y,
Yeah,
or
like
Z.
here, like for example, like if they say that over the last couple of years, like they've had residents either like quit and switch specialties or like get fired or whatever, or like, if they've done, like you said, like they've taken and made major like developments, right? For example, like, anything that we should be like kind of wary of and looking out for that we shouldn't like kind of overlook and sweep under the rug just because of like the hustle culture.
Yeah, I mean, if a lot of residents are quitting, yeah, that's probably indicative of maybe something's wrong with that program. I mean, that I know, uh, I think at Vanderbilt it was either Vanderbilt or Emory. I think it was Vanderbilt there. They had like a handful of residents like just quit not only their residency but like change orthopedics because apparently their call there is like brutal and it's so busy. I mean, it wears on you for sure. So if there's like a high attrition rate and a lot of residents are dropping out, that's probably not a good sign. And also another thing too, if there's a lot of attending turnover, which um isn't like directly related to the residency, but oftentimes that can be indicative of like the culture there is not as good. And also if you keep getting new attendings, they might not be like as comfortable with the residents. If someone's been there for like 20 years and they have their system down, then it's much easier for them to integrate a resident into their workflow and stuff like that. So resident dropout or attrition, if there's like a high turnover of attendings, that could be another one to look out for too. Like most of our guys at our hospital were like a lot of them were residents here and they've all been here for like 20 years and they're like used to, they know what's going on. And knock on wood, I don't think we've had a resident quit here ever.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck. Enjoy Colorado too if you get any time off. Denver's sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna wait a minute in case anyone else has any questions. But yeah, Casey, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time and for doing this.
Yeah, of course. And let me see. I can put like my phone number and email in the group chat thing. When do applications go out for you guys?
I think they open.
September 25th,
Yeah,
but they open September 4th.
exactly.
Nice. Yeah. At least my year, I'm not sure if the system's still like this, but my year was like they open and then just everyone would like submit them as soon as possible. I don't know if there's like a difference now or they all get sent out later at the same time, but my year kind of timing mattered because I remember they're like they close on this date, but they open on this date, and everyone just submitted them all like on the day they opened.
I think for us it does not matter. They'll all be sent later. Like they'll go out together at the end of the month.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good.
If you still have a second,
Yeah, of course.
so just like to follow up on what Anna was talking about, can you ask these kind of questions like in an interview? Like, have any residents left your program in the last couple of years? And if so, like loosely, what was the situation?
I mean, that's probably a fair play to ask. A question that I like to ask would be, you could kind of frame it as like, how do you define a successful resident in your program? And then has anyone like fallen short of that
Sure.
in recent years?
Okay, yeah.
That's just good to kind of know. Like, 'cause sometimes people, they'll like remediate a resident, you'll have to like repeat your second or third year or something like that. So
Mm.
yeah, I think like to make it a positive, it's like, what do you look for, or like what do you consider like success as a resident at your hospital? And then on the flip side, like, has anyone like not met the benchmark? And then if so, like, were they brought up to speed or what happened?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's touchy because I mean, like, it's personality dependent. I don't care. Students could ask like truly anything, and I'm not like, oh, they're going to be lazy or they're not going to be a good resident. But some people are touchy, so that's why I just like would be reluctant to tell med students like, oh, it's open season, ask whatever you want. Because some people would be like, oh, they asked about the call or the hours worked, like they're going to be lazy, but like that's not the case at all. Like everyone works hard. It's reasonable to want to know what you're getting into, I think, but not everyone thinks that way.
I think one more question is so before you do away rotations, when you're doing your second year, third year rotations, um, do you guys pay attention to where was the student rotating for surgery, whether like it was a big surgery center or not, and where did you rotate for IM and
No, that's all kind of a myth. I mean, you need to remember like every program's getting hundreds of thousands of applications. Like no one's going to be like, oh, where was their surgery done? Where was their medicine done? 'Cause actually, when I was at Robert Wood, I don't know if I assume some of you guys will rotate at Monmouth. My year was the first year that they acquired Monmouth Medical Center. And they told us they were like, if you do your entire third year there, we will like give you a housing and a stipend. And everyone was like, well, I don't want to rotate at Monmouth. It's not Robert Wood, and it'll like reflect poorly on my transcript or whatever that I did it at Monmouth. And I had an awesome time. I mean, there was an apartment like on the beach and they gave like a stipend and it was awesome. So yeah, I think on the back end, med students kind of get caught up of like, oh, they're going to see where I did X, Y, or Z. No one cares. No one has time to look at that when they're reviewing all these applications. Um, and I mean, it's one thing if you're like, hey, I really want to see like complex vascular surgery, then like, yeah, maybe do your surgery rotation at Robert Wood. But I was like, I hate general surgery and I don't like abdominal surgery or like colorectal or any of that stuff. So I was like, perfect. I'll do it at Monmouth and probably have a better lifestyle for those few months as a med student, which I did, and it ended up being fine.
awesome, thanks.
Yep.
Do we have any more questions? I feel like we had a good amount of questions answered, so thank you so much. Before everyone leaves, I dropped a link for a feedback form in the chat, and that also like counts as attendance for those who care about the non-credit elective. So please fill it out.
Okay. And then
But
yeah,
yeah, Casey, yeah.
I left my email on my cell, so truly you guys can email me or text me anytime. If I don't answer, it's probably just because I'm like in the operating room or something, but always try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Casey. We're not gonna hold you anymore. I
Okay.
appreciate
Yeah.
your
No
time.
worries. Everyone is a fourth year. Good luck on your OAs and applications and everything.
Thank you.
See you guys.